With the recent reveal of Bone Rattle Arena, Salmon Run Next Wave's newest stage, we're now in a state of curiosity for what the next big run stage will be. Looking in the past, we've had big runs take place on Wahoo World, Inkblot Art Academy, Undertow Spillway, Umami Ruins, and Barnacle and Dime. But it leaves me with the question, what will be the next big run stage? In this video, you'll see the 4 stages that I think have the highest likelihood of being overrun by the Salmonids. I'll also be including the maps of each tide throughout the video, so you can get more of a visual of my ideas. Disclaimer, I'm only discussing stages that were released in Chill Season 2023 or earlier. Also, this is all speculative, so if the stage is real and doesn't look similar to my ideas, this is why. If you enjoy this content, be sure to like and subscribe, as more is planned to release. With that being said, let's get into the video. Stage number 1, Museum de Alfonsino. I actually had a dream that this was announced by Deep Cut, but now I can honestly see Museum de Alfonsino being overrun by the Salmonids. This is mainly due to how Inkblot worked as a stage, with its side areas being the spawn pools. For where the tides will be, normal tide will take place on the snipe area, as I think you'll have good visibility for where the Salmonids come from. I wanted to aim for something a little bit challenging here, as the distance from where you'll fight the Salmonids is a bit more linear, and the only way you can lure up Salmonids is up this ramp. However, playing aggressively isn't the worst idea, since both snatcher locations are behind the basket. Low tide will take place in mid, just like Inkblot, and the sides will be for gushers, alongside one on the opponent's side. I'd argue this is one of the more difficult tides for basket management, since on paper I think it's important to have a teammate or two on all sides. Lastly, high tide will be by the spawn. It's very close quarters, as there isn't that much room, but this means higher egg potential because of how close the boss Salmonids are to the basket. As much as it takes away from the stage itself that the spinners won't be present, this is a very logical route that the devs can do to make for a functioning big run stage here. Stage number 2, Flounder Heights. For big run, this stage kinda resided in the back of my mind for a while now. At first, I didn't really think the stage was meant for it. I mean, the geometry of the map felt too imbalanced, but after playing on Barnacle and Dime, I feel like I could make a good assumption for how it'll be. Starting with normal tide, I think it would be perfect for it to take place at the spawn region. It's pretty similar to how Hydroplant's high tide worked, where everything spawned from across 3 different directions, yet are still close to the basket. Low tide will take place in the enemy's spawn region. Luring here sounds like a lot of fun to me, since you have a lot of area behind for cover. Luring steelheads alongside other lurable bosses, such as scrappers and lids, are definitely key, too. For high tide, I wanted to do something very challenging, except very rewarding. Luring here is quite literally a must. Something cool to note though, is that this little area is totally safe for luring steel eels and other lurables across. When I mentioned this is on the challenging side, the only way you can get from one side to the other is through this grate. However, you can paint these walls and climb up them too. Stage number 3, Sturgeon Shipyard. Ever since 2019, I've always thought of Sturgeon Shipyard as a salmon stage, dating back to Splatoon 2. Of course, during the time I knew that wasn't going to happen, until the Splatoon 3 Direct mentioned Big Run. I told myself, no way, this is actually happening, as this dream could be a reality. Sturgeon Shipyard just gave off the perfect impression for a big run stage. This ranges from the way everything in the middle is structured, all the way to the geometry of the stage, which highly supports the Salmonid's behavior. Starting off with normal tide, I think it would be perfectly fine in the middle of the stage. I feel this would make for the perfect center point where everything would flow pretty nicely. The main importance here will be to lure from all sides, but if you're playing with a team with communication, it's a good idea to take note of the snatcher locations too, as one of the 3 areas at random will always be available to optimize. For something a little different, I want to see low tide take place in the enemy base. This would work pretty similar to Jam and Salmon Junction, where the chaos and action takes place from all sides. I think this is one of those scenarios where luring is very rewarding, and you have plenty of room for you to be able to stay back. High tide would most likely take place at spawn, since the elevation there is much higher than in mid. It would work very similarly to Undertow Spillway, where the spawns split across different regions, whether they be regular Salmonids or snatchers. A good strategy here would be to play safely when going to the right side, as flyfish missiles or stingrays can be a major problem on such a narrow path. Stage number 4, Scorch Gorge. For the last stage of this video, I wanted to end this off with a more poetic stage, that being the first Splatoon 3 stage we've seen upon the game's reveal, Scorch Gorge. At first, it might sound weird since the layout doesn't really seem too fitting for Salmon Run, but I personally think that it would be really cool to have a big run occur here, namely due to it simply tackling the chaotic theme I would think of when it comes to Splatoon 3. Also, with the recent reveal of Bone Rattle Arena, I think the stages have quite a few similarities. A couple would be the middle platform being connected by the grates on both sides, and the overall chaotic theme I think the developers aced. However, for simplicity's sake, I think Scorch Gorge would support the behaviors of the Salmonids if the middle platform just didn't exist. For Normal Tide, I wanted this to be pretty similar to Inkblot Art Academy, where the basket would be at the player's side on a higher elevation. I think it would be very important to lure here, since the only routes you can take to retreat would either be on the left side or through the middle. Low Tide has a bit of a throwback to Umami Ruins' big run, where you would fight on the other side of the stage. What makes this one more different is how close the spawning areas are to the basket. The distance from the basket and the gushers is roughly an egg throw away, so it's a win-win situation whether your plan is to play aggressively and destroy a lot of bosses early, or play passively and lure extensively. For High Tide, the basket takes place on an elevated surface to the left side of the player's base. The key here would be to lure a good amount, but to also be ready for a surprise ambush with that close gusher on the basket's right-hand side. Luring is definitely essential, but if you want to play aggressively, the Snatchers will always be behind the basket in this instance, so it's another win-win situation. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, as we're currently aiming for 2,000 subscribers, and all of the support is genuinely appreciated. My question to all of you is, what stage do you want to see in the next big run? Be sure to leave a comment below. Take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.